17 or 18 years in May and June, and it will exclusively be May and June. It'd be from several sites, including my garden. I'll talk about pictures on Mountain Magazine and various other places that I hike, including the Ouachita Trail. And so these plants will be familiar to a lot of you, and we'll not only have plants, but we'll have a number of animals we see on the trail as well. And we'll discuss them. This is Iris virginica. It's a common iris in much of Arkansas. It occurs all the way to the East Coast, hence Iris virginica. It originally described as being from Virginia. That does not occur west of Arkansas. It may occur down on the coast. It would be unusual west of west central Arkansas. It does occur in River Valley. It grows here at Goose Pond, which is Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission area, just north of I-40 near Atkins. That's the westernmost cypress tupelo swamp in Arkansas, and it occurs there. I've had it in my pond for about 30 years, and it seeds around, and beautiful iris. This is Louisiana iris. We have two species of Louisiana iris in Arkansas. We have Iris brevicollis and then copper iris. Those are the two species we have. There's 5 or 6 more in Louisiana, and as you master gardeners are probably familiar with this iris. It will grow on land and in garden conditions as well. It'll grow right out in the water. It's a very successful iris, and there are many cultivars of it and crosses of it that are available in commerce. Probably at least 25 or 30 different crosses available. So, yeah. That is Louisiana iris. There's another Louisiana iris, and
thank you.
They're quite beautiful.
Oh, isn't that pretty?
See, Janet, you need to mute yourself.
Areas in the south.
Okay, this is pale purple coneflower. I'm sure you master gardeners are familiar with it, and most master naturalists. Many of you have it in your yard. It's a wildflower. It's a great pollinator. It's readily available. I know they sell it. I bought it from the plant sale, the Audubon Society. The butterfly here is a very ragged, older American lady. It's a common Arkansas butterfly. The host plant of the American lady is pussy toes and related species. And pussy toes are common in Arkansas and glades and that sort of thing. And but that's the host species of the larva of this butterfly. Now this butterfly, as an adult stage, feeds on several different nectar producers, including pale purple coneflower. There's pale purple in a disturbed area. You can see that there's an invasive here, Sericea lespedeza, which was imported many years ago from the Middle East as a hay producer and for cattle. It's escaped all over the United States, the southern half of the United States, and very prominent invasive in Arkansas. This is a pale purple coneflower, as I said, and this is a milkweed. Yeah, it's a milkweed. It's a common milkweed. It's called butterfly weed, and appropriately. It's not the preferred larval host of butterflies, but it is used by the migrating butterflies. Here it is again. This is a very orange specimen. The other, this is the leaves, and these are leaves of Arkansas Arkansas Blue Star. I took this picture just a couple days ago. We have American basket flower. It's a common winter annual. It blooms in the spring. Generally not perennial, but you can occasionally buy this specimen, this particular plant. I know Marion King up here at London had it available a number of years ago. She was selling basket flower. And it's got a little visitor here. And this, of course, is a daddy longlegs. And most of you are familiar with that species. They're not actually spiders. They're arachnids, but they're not actually spiders. They're very close related to spiders. They have a lot more leg segments than spiders do. And their body is fused instead of a head, a thorax, and abdomen. Spiders have their head and their thorax fused together. It's called a cephalothorax. And they have an abdomen. Well, daddy longlegs is all fused together. Their head, thorax, and abdomen are all fused together in daddy longlegs. But they're common all over the world, and they're not poisonous, contrary to what some people say. They're not poisonous, but they do have odor that they produce when you touch them, and that's why I don't like them on me. You go to knock them off and you get it on your hands, and it doesn't smell good. That's American basket flower. It's a really big pollinator in Arkansas. Fritillaries love it. So if you have an opportunity to get it in your garden, it's great. American basket flower. Sitar, This is a picture I took up at Mount Magazine at the Visitor Center. In front of the Visitor Center, Lori Spencer, there, the butterfly lady of Arkansas, has a butterfly garden. And this is some of her purple coneflowers that she had there. And there were several pollinators on the day that I visited, which may have been during the butterfly festival. I do go up there a good bit because it's not far from the house. These are skippers. I'm not sure which species. And this is a sulfur, and you can see the sulfur better. And I think after study, that is a female orange sulfur. If anybody has any ideas about what it could be differently, let me know, but I think it's a female orange sulfur. You see her proboscis sticking down in the flower. You notice that she has 3 sets of legs. Now, all butterflies don't have 3 sets of legs. I'll show you some butterflies that don't have 3 sets of legs soon. But this is probably a female orange sulfur. You can see that she has a little bit of dark pigment showing through from the front wings. So she has a dark mask on the tips of the wings when she opens up. That's probably an orange sulfur, female. It's another American lady. This one is feeding on purple coneflower. I took this picture in Mount Magazine, up where the map is laid out in stone at the very top, at the 2,653 foot elevation. There's a map laid out in stone. I guess you guys have been up there before on the trail. It's just up from the lodge a little bit, maybe a half mile up from the lodge. But this is where I took this a butterfly picture. Took that with just a point and shoot a number of years ago. Kind of hard to get focused sometime with a point and shoot, but if you can get some good pictures. You could have taken this with your phone camera as well. A lot of you guys know this guy. If you've got a pond around, I do have a pond in the front yard, obviously. This guy comes up and he's always in the yard, and sometimes he's even right out the front door. And it seems like the same snake year after year, although I guess it's probably different ones of them. But this is a yellow-bellied water snake, and it's one of our most common water snakes, and it's one that you can find in local ponds. And they mainly eat frogs. The other part of their diet consists of fish. But this guy, he'll get way away from he'll get 200 feet away from the water and explore around, especially during mating season. But this is a musky snake. He smells bad when you go when you frighten him. He lets out musk, and so it's really smells like a skunk. But he's a neat little snake otherwise. And the water snakes, I didn't know this until I started reading about them. Water snakes are ovoviviparous. That is, they produce eggs that are retained within the body and then give live young. And of course, I knew that pit vipers did this also, but actually water snakes also have live young. This one, you guys have all seen this one. If you walked in the forest, this is a rough green snake. And he's a little dude that primarily eats spiders, but he'll eat other insects as well. But he's mainly a spider eater. And he's a neat little snake, and he's an excellent climber, and he spends a good part of his life in trees. And he actually lays his eggs in trees. He lays his eggs in hollow trees. And his biggest enemy is probably the blue jay. Blue jays eat a lot of these dudes. But a rough green snake. This is on the trail at Washita Trail near the Perrin Trailhead off Highway 9. All y'all know this dude. He wouldn't come out because my son's dog kept coming and sniffing of him, frightening him in, so I didn't get a picture of him with his head out. But this is a really large three-toed box turtle, and this is our most common box turtle. We have some ornate box turtles that invade from the plains into the western counties, but they're pretty rare. I've only seen a couple ornate box turtles in my time, and I grew up in Polk County, Arkansas, which is on the state line, but I did see a couple ornate box turtles when I was a child. But this is the three-toed box turtle, and this is a male, and we know it's a male because of its bright coloration. And this dude can live at an average age of 50 years and can live up to and exceed 100 years old. They grow all their lives. When they reach maturity, their growth rate really slows, but they continue to grow. And this was a very large three-toed box turtle, which I'm sure he probably closer to 100 than he was 50. But very interesting. This is the American ipecac. I don't know if you know this plant. It's rather decorative. It's got these starry, lax white flowers that are very pretty. It grows in partial shade very well if you want to grow it in your garden. American ipecac. This is the medication that many of you took when you were kids. When you ate something you weren't supposed to. So we used to use this in medicine, ipecac. Used it up till about 20 years ago. And we use it routinely for children who would ingest medication on an accidental basis. And we would give them ipecac, and it would make them vomit it up. But it's a very beautiful plant, and there's two species you grow in here in Arkansas, and this is the stipulatus species. We have both of them here in our area. American ipecac. I'm sure some of you took ipecac when you were kids, but we don't give it. The last 20 years or so, we decided it wasn't effective. It wasn't. The detrimental aspects of it were worse than the benefits. Most of you guys have seen this guy. This is Cecropia moth, and now this is a giant silk moth. There are many of these species that live in Arkansas. Cecropia is one of them. Luna is another one. This is Polyphemus. I'm sorry. This is Polyphemus. Cecropia is one of them. This is Polyphemus. I'm erred. Polyphemus is one of them. Cecropia is one of them. And Polyphemus and Cecropia will get to be about 6 inches wingspan. And so they're huge. These are the largest North American moths. Cecropia polyphemus, but this is Polyphemus. Most of them have these eyes here, and that is to frighten potential predators. Is this a male or female? We can tell whether it's a male or female. And this one is a female. Now, how do we know she's female? It's because of the antenna, okay? These are small antennae. You remember that the females secrete pheromones, which attract the males, and the males can detect the pheromones for miles and fly to find the female. And of course, the pheromones are species specific, and the male has many little hairs on his antennas. His antennas are much larger, and there's many hairs on the antennas. And that's how he picks up the pheromones from the female. And this occurs in all this whole group of giant silk moths. Now, what do these giant silk moths eat when they're adults? They don't eat at all. Their mouth parts are vestigial. And they live about a week, and they live off stored fat and fluid in their body, and then they die after they mate. But they actually never feed. Giant silk moths. Polyphemus is the species here. Now, if anybody has any questions, you can refer them. There's a little chat bar down at the bottom. You can chat and ask questions from the chat. And then when you ask questions, we'll pick that up and we'll try to answer your questions. Now, this is a blueberry. Most of you probably recognize this. It's one of our native blueberries. We've got some other little berries down here that are also native. It's muscadine, and must be a muscadine around. This is red maple. So muscadine and red maple in the background. But this is one of our native blueberries. And this is rabbit eye blueberry, and it grows in much of the state. It grows in all the way to Little Rock in the east, and it'll grow all the way down to the Gulf Coastal Plain. It grows in parts of the river valley. It's not described from Pope, P-O-P, Russellville West. It's not common. It's not described as being from those areas, but it does grow in parts of River Valley, including Faulkner and Conway County. But this is rabbit eye blueberry. And this is the blueberry that we use in our gardens, the most efficient producer of blueberries. And so if you go, either you grow blueberries, you probably have a rabbit eye. There's another species called high bush, but rabbit eyes are much better garden plants than high bush, and they live a long time. I've got one, if you're interested to see a picture, one rabbit eye blueberry that's 10 feet tall and 15 feet wide and produces 7 gallons of blueberries from one plant. Yeah, it's amazing. I can show you a picture if you're interested. This is rabbit eye blueberry.
He's not a member of Better Business Bureau, so there's no complaints.
This is spring spider lily. It grows as far west as Conway County in Arkansas, so it's in Conway and Faulkner counties. It's common in eastern Arkansas. It's a beautiful native lily. It's not actually, it's an amaryllis, I think, rather than a lily, but it is a lily as far as we're concerned. It'll grow in your garden in a moist area. It's a beautiful plant. We have 2 species here in Arkansas. We have a summer spider lily and spring spider lily. This picture is from my garden. We got 4 species of wild petunias, and they're actually nice garden specimens. They can be a little aggressive at times, but sometimes we like aggressive plants in our gardens. Wild petunia can be very good. And we have 4 species, and this is one's called hairy wild petunia.
The garden mint.
It's common in prairies. You'll see it in Cherokee Prairie.
So I was.
Hairy wild petunia.
Yeah,
Janet could. See, somebody needs to mute themselves. Maybe Janet.
You know, in another way. But on that downhill, they have
can we mute Janet?
Tutorial
Okay,
on how to make a water garden, and it's planting things like those lilies and irises and cactus and things like that. And so I
Hey, Margaret, is the moderator. I think she has the ability to do this.
Jan Beto, can you mute yourself, please? Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a common garden butterfly. This is spicebush swallowtail. Swallowtails are a group of butterflies that are common in Arkansas. We have 4 or 5 species, maybe more. But this is spicebush swallowtail. Now, it's a large butterfly, a very beautiful butterfly. This butterfly has 6 legs, 3 sets. He has 2 rows of purple, of orange dots on the outer wing. Okay, so that's how we know spicebush swallowtail. There's 2 rows of orange dots. There's a lot of mimicry that goes on with the swallowtails. Pipevine swallowtail is toxic because it gets toxic chemicals from the larva when they eat the pipevine, and so they're toxic to birds. And so a lot of these other butterflies mimic pipevine swallowtail. We see it with this swallowtail, spicebush swallowtail. We see it with the tiger swallowtail. And the tiger swallowtail female forms look like the spicebush or the pipevine swallowtail. And also, other ones that mimic that are the Diana butterfly, mimics that coloration as well. It's interesting that with the tiger swallowtail and the mimicry, the tiger females in other parts of the United States are yellow just like their male counterparts. But in the areas in the South where pipevine is prominent and pipevine swallowtail grows, the females are dark colored. And it's just sexual mimicry. There is spicebush opened up. Basically, the open side looks just like a pipevine swallowtail. Here's pipevine swallowtail. Now you can see the difference. We have 1 row of orange dots. This is on Mount Magazine. This is pipevine swallowtail. And you can see 2 rows versus 1 row of orange dots. This is pipevine swallowtail. We see a swallowtail here feeding on larkspur. This is Carolina larkspur. This is a tall, late-blooming prairie larkspur. You'll see this in the prairies. You'll see it on some roadsides throughout Arkansas. This is Carolina larkspur, and it gets to about 5 feet tall. Now we can see this. This is clearly a swallowtail, but we can't tell what kind it is, can we? Because we can't see the backside of the wing. This could be either, number one, spicebush swallowtail, number two, pipevine swallowtail, or the black form of tiger swallowtail. So since we can't see the back wing, we don't know what it is. This is a St. John's wort. St. John's wort are historically related to depression and treatment of depression. It's not as effective probably as the serotonin reuptake inhibitors we take medication-wise for depression, but it has been used historically over the years for treatment of depression. There are multiple species in the world, and in Arkansas there are several species. This is probably Hypericum frondosum. My son took this picture a number of years ago, and he did really well with this one. This is probably frondosum here. It's a very nice garden specimen. It's easy to grow. You can collect the seeds when they dry from these little seed capsules, a little ovary here. And each ovary has like 100 seeds or so, and they're fairly small, but you can, I've grown them successfully. They live in the garden. They make a beautiful woody plant that has exfoliated bark and has beautiful yellow flowers, and they'll bloom for about a 2 to 3 week period in the summer. And so they have multiple appeal because of their exfoliating bark. In the wintertime, they're very pretty, and then in the summer they bloom. And they're mainly fertilized by bees, but they're very pretty and they're relatively easy to grow. They live 15 to 20 years. They don't live forever, but the shrub can live. In my garden, I got one about 15 years old. Some of the others have died over time, but they'll seed around. St. John's wort, and that's prolific St. John's wort, or Hypericum prolificum. Now we're into the season now, in May and June, where we start seeing a lot of yellow flowers, right? A lot of yellow wildflowers. This is one of them, of course. And this is black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia huerta. Some people say huerta. I mean, I guess that's the correct Latin pronunciation, but Rudbeckia huerta. And this one's got a little scarab beetle that's working it, and you can see the damage to some of the petals from the scarab beetle. It really won't hurt the flower as far as its productivity goes. These things really seed around, and you can collect the seed easily. And it's in the late summer when the flower begins to influte and the seeds are mature. You can collect the heads and just squeeze them, and all the seeds will fall out. Throw them in a pot with some soil in it, and it'll make hundreds of these things. And you can then in the spring plant them around the garden, and it's really easy to do and well worth it because they're a wonderful wildflower, and they're tremendous nectar source for all sorts of bees and butterflies. Here it is again. That's Rudbeckia huerta again, and this is a dainty sulfur. We talked about sulfurs earlier. You saw the sulfur earlier, and this is a much smaller species. This is called dainty sulfur, and it's only about a little bigger than your thumbnail in size. Yes, somebody's coming through that needs to mute themselves.
Eddie, can you mute yourself, please? Send her a text. I think she will. Sorry.
I think some folks are just not used to Zoom, but yeah. Okay. That's dainty sulfur. Here's another Rudbeckia huerta. This is a gray hair streak. The hair streaks are common butterflies in the blue group. We have like 5 different families of butterflies in Arkansas, and this is one of them, the hair streaks. This is gray hair streak. We have a number of hair streaks in Arkansas. This is a fairly common one. This is a small butterfly, maybe wingspan less than 2 inches in diameter. It's a very beautiful butterfly. It has this little tail on it. There's another really common butterfly. This is the buckeye. You know, y'all have seen this. You know, it's a common midsummer to late summer butterfly, but it's out most of the year, one part of the year. That's buckeye. Okay, I took this picture the other day. When you were with us for our last presentation, I showed you some of the early spiderworts. This is the later spiderwort. This is Ohio spiderwort. This is a tall spiderwort that grows in prairies and roadsides, and also glades in Arkansas. And I took this on a glade on a hike a day before yesterday. This is Ohio spiderwort. It's a tall spiderwort. It gets to about 3 feet high, and it doesn't bloom until, it's not like the others. They start blooming at ground level and come up and grow up. It actually starts blooming when it's pretty tall. So it's tall. It's also called tall spiderwort too. The Ohio spiderwort. It's a beautiful plant. Here it is, the whole plant. It's just growing out of a crack in the rock down here in the moss. And this was on the Ouachita Trail. In the background, we see some phlox. We see our old friend poison ivy. A lot of poison ivy. Now, last month I showed you guys this fern. This is cinnamon fern. It's a common fern in Arkansas, particularly in acid seeps. Okay, so this tells us that we're at acid seep, and indeed there was a hole with water coming out, and this is a permanent wet area on the Ouachita Trail. And it's an acid seep, and cinnamon fern grows there. Now, when we saw this last month, the cinnamon fern had its fertile frond, and that fertile frond came out very early on cinnamon fern, and in April, early April, that's one of the more prominent things you see is the fertile frond came out. And the fertile frond on this species is totally dedicated. It has no leaflets on it, no leaves on it. It's totally dedicated to spore formation. And here it's already gone away. It's already involuted. We no longer see the fertile frond here. And we see just the plant itself. And this plant is probably 4 feet high and 6 feet wide. That's how big it is already. It's going to grow some more. And these things can get to be 6 feet tall or more. That's cinnamon fern. Its cousin is over here. This is royal fern. Okay. Now you can see some difference between they both grow acid seeps. Royal fern and cinnamon fern are the same genus, Osmunda, but they have a lot of differences. You see, the leaflets of cinnamon fern are indented, have multiple indentations, whereas the leaflets of royal fern do not. The leaflets of royal fern are smaller, the whole plant is smaller, and a significant difference is the sporangia. The fertile fronds have leaves on them. Now you can't see it very well, but you can see it here. So the fertile fronds are leaved up to the point that they develop the sporangia. The sporangial portion is large on royal fern, but it comes from a otherwise functioning photosynthetic leaf. And so that's the fertile area on royal fern. But these both grow in moist areas, especially acid seeps, but you can see them sometimes along creeks and waterways. This down here is big leaf snowbell. And I showed you last month big leaf snowbell blooming. It's still blooming on the Washita Trail. The Washita Trail, on the eastern half of Washita Trail, has more big leaf snowbells than I've ever seen in my life. You see them by the thousands from Perrin west, especially maybe Highway 27. Great numbers of snowbells and beautiful plants, beautiful little small shrubs. But that's called the big leaf snowbell. We have another native species snowbell called American snowbell, and it grows in swampier areas. This one grows on mesic, moist hillsides in the Washita's, and I think it grows in the Ozarks as well, although I've not seen it commonly. But this segment of the trail west of Perrin has the most snowbells I've ever seen. You can see it by the thousands upon thousands. It's called big leaf snowbell. Beautiful plant. You get an opportunity to ever purchase it, do. This is yucca, okay? And you all know yucca. Most of the yuccas we have around that we in our gardens are from yuccas that have come from other parts of the United States, either west or east. The southern United States has a number of native yuccas. This is Arkansas yucca, Yucca arkansanus, okay? It grows in Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma. There's a few colonies in Louisiana and quite a few in East Texas. But this is Arkansas yucca, and it is our smallest yucca, and it's characterized by a non-branching inflorescence. And you can see this is divided into, it's grown and it makes its own divisions, and it comes up each with each division then has a inflorescence. And these are pale yellow, pale green. Arkansas yucca is not quite, it's pale green. And so this is Arkansas yucca, Yucca arkansanus. Behind there is Louisiana iris. And we see a radiation right here, this sable minor or palmetto. And palmetto grows in Arkansas. This is obviously my garden, so palmetto's there, but palmetto is a beautiful plant that you can grow. It grows primarily in southern Arkansas in swampy areas, but it grows quite well in garden soil as well. Palmetto. Here's the flower of Arkansas yucca. Very interesting flower. These stamen are really thick and the anthers real small on the tip, and they're fertilized by yucca moth, and it's quite a complex fertilization process, but generally only fertilized by yucca moth. And we talked about mimicry earlier. We talked about swallowtails, and this looks like a swallowtail, doesn't it? But it's not. This is red spotted purple, and but the color pattern is similar to the pipevine swallowtail as mimicry to keep from being captured by birds, because pipevine swallowtails are toxic to the birds. There's another little bit less prominent dots. This is taken from the Top of Mount magazine. When I first looked at this, thought it was a female, was a female Diana, but it was not a Diana. It's red spotted purple. This was on a rainy day, and so the butterflies weren't very active, and you could get up close to them. Got this picture with just a little point and shoot camera. Purple. That's a great spangled fritillary. Now we talked about fritillaries feeding on violets earlier, and so their larvae feed on violets, including Diana fritillary. But this is a great spangled fritillary here, and it's feeding on native bee balm on Top of Mount magazine. My magazine has this white bee balm. It's Monarda fistulosa, which is the most common species, but Monarda officiosa varies in color all the way from pure white to a pale purple to a very vivid a pinky purple. The further you go, it seems like going up from up Highway 7, further you get up there, the more purple or more pinky purple they get as opposed to lighter colors. So you get some beautiful specimen seeds up there probably. This is also Red Spangled Fritillary feeding on a pale purple coneflower. Yeah, you notice that he only has 2 sets of legs. He's only got 4 legs. Now, why does he have 4 legs versus the other butterflies having 6 legs? Don't insects have 6 legs? Well, in this particular group of butterflies called the brushfoots, and there are many, many of them, this is their largest family of butterflies in Arkansas. Their front legs are modified in vestigial, and but they're probably involved in nectar collection, but they're not available for walking, so or clinging onto things. So they appear to have just 2 sets of legs. That's the brushfoot butterflies, and you can see his proboscis sticking down in the flower. This is a skipper. This is silver spotted skipper. And he's feeding on bee balm, and this is on Mount Magazine. We can see the white bee balm. This is a very hairy bee balm, Monarda fistulosa. You can see that the flowers are very irregular. It's a mint, square stems, opposite leaves, always a mint. It's very fragrant. The fragrance is almost noxious, but it has this lower limb that the butterfly is clinging onto. This is a lower petal. It has a top petal, and in this particular species, it completely engrosses the stamens, okay? And probably keeping the stamens away from the pistil, so it won't fertilize itself. It wants to cross-fertilize, and it's got plenty of pollinators who are more than willing to help out. But you can see this dude here. He's a skipper. He's got 3 sets of legs. He's grasping with his 4 legs. He's grasping the flower around to hold himself up, and his proboscis is sticking down in the flower. That's a silver-spotted skipper. That's another group of our butterflies. And that is on Monarda fistulosa, is the bee balm there. Wild bergamot is another name. There's 6 species of bee balm in Arkansas. They're all great garden plants, especially this species. It can be pretty aggressive, but it's well worth it. Now, this is another species, and you can see some differences, okay? You notice that it's not quite as hairy. The leaves are more shiny. They don't have as many hairs. It has little purple dots, okay? Dozens of purple dots on each flower. We didn't see this with the other species. And then here's another unique thing, okay? At the end of the lower petal is a little snake's tongue, okay? You can see it on several flowers. Now, I don't know what that is. Perhaps it allows some pollinators to grasp the flower better. We don't know evolutionarily what benefit it has. But this is one called Monarda bradburyana, okay? It is common in Arkansas. It should be present in most of the counties where everybody that's looking at this presentation lives. Monarda bradburyana, Bradbury's bee balm. There's an old flower stalk from last year with the seeds stalk. Back in the background is wild yam vine. There's our friend poison ivy. Monarda bradburyana. Now here's another Monarda bradburyana. It's all the same species, 40 miles away, okay? Now look what's happened to that distinct snake's tongue. It's become a lot more blunted. You can still see it to some degree, but it's a lot more blunted. Notice that this species has the purple dots, that the upper corolla tube encases the stamens is on the previous species. So it's much like the previous species in that respect, but its little snake's tongue is modified. Same species, 40 miles away. Aha, we see something different here. The little snake's tongue's not developed as well, is it? Okay, still got the purple dots, okay, but the snake's tongue's not developed as well. This is out in western Arkansas, in Polk County, Arkansas, at one of the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission natural areas. This natural area is called Iron Mountain Natural Area. And it was made a natural area to protect a endemic salamander that grows there. And that's the purpose of that natural area. But there are many other benefits too, and it has a lot of wildflowers. And this one is called Russell's bergamot, Russell's bee balm, Monarda russelliana. Now, there's something distinct about it that's very distinct. The top corolla petal does not encase the stamens. The stamens, or the top corolla petal, recurves backward, okay? And you can see it on all the specimens there. The top, instead of encasing the stamens, it curves backwards. And so when you see that, you know you've got Russell's monarda, or Russell's bee balm. And I've never tried this in a garden. I don't know. I think it would do pretty good. Typically, you see it in shady areas, in fairly dry forest in the western Ouachitas. It'd probably be a good garden plant as well. But it's unique in that it has the upper corolla tube does not encase the stamens on this particular species. Y'all know what that is. I was hiking on, doing some work actually on one of the mesas here locally called Mount Nebo. There's a state park there. And I was working in a state park volunteering, and this guy was right next to the trail. Thought he was totally hidden, and obviously he's a newborn. We see some greenbrier in front of him, but he never moved, and I got fairly close. But he obviously was doing what he was supposed to be doing, being still. This is one of our milkweed species. We have 14 species of milkweeds in Arkansas, and obviously. Milkweeds have importance. This one is called white milkweed or variegated milkweed. Now it's called white milkweed because it's mostly white, but it's also called variegated milkweed. It's another name for it because it has these little purple areas at the base of the flower of variegated milkweed. And this one will grow in glades. It'll grow in light forested areas. It's not very common in areas that get too much sunlight, but it's not an uncommon milkweed in Arkansas. It's, I think, one of our prettiest milkweeds as well. Took that back in 2012. Asclepias variegata is the genus species name of this particular milkweed. And again, monarchs, we talked about milkweeds and monarchs. And you can see that the leaves on this have been sampled a little bit. Now, whether it had any monarch larvae on it, I don't know. But it would be an important monarch host species for the larva. Variegated milkweed, or also called white milkweed. We have 2 species of native roses in our parts of the state. There are many invasive species of roses that have become somewhat naturalized, unfortunately. But this is one of our native species. This is Rosa carolina. It is a small rose species, very beautiful, fragrant. It can get pretty aggressive in the garden. Actually, this was taken on the Ouachita Trail in a north slope in a fairly shady area. And I got down on the rocks to take this picture. And you can see the things are pretty moist and the rocks are pretty slick. So I was a little bit apprehensive about getting down there, but I did get a good picture. And there's Rosa carolina again. The other native rose that we have in Arkansas is Rosa satigera, or climbing rose. And it's a very, very beautiful rose. Flower looks the same, a light pink. It's fragrant also. It's much more aggressive grower. It'll grow quite large. It can sort of take over a garden, so to speak, but you can confine it. But it's another common native rose, the climbing rose, Rosa satigera. This is Rosa carolina here. Okay, I talked last time about wild indigo in Arkansas, and in April we had the creamy, long-bracted wild indigo was the only one blooming in April, and that is the one that had the creamy flowers that were horizontal to the ground. I don't know if you remember that. It had large, creamy flowers that were horizontal to the ground. The rest of our species are vertical. Their inflorescences are vertical, and this is one of those. And this one is yellow wild indigo, and it's most common in Arkansas as far as its distribution. Although there are some sites in Oklahoma and a few in northeast Texas and northern Louisiana. But it's mainly an Arkansas species. This is yellow wild indigo. It is Baptisia spherocarpa. It's called spherocarpa because the nutlets, the seed pods or nutlets are round on this species. And it's a very beautiful species. It's good nectar source for butterflies. That is yellow wild indigo, or Baptisia spherocarpa. We have 5 species in Arkansas. That's one of them. You've already seen the long-bracted wild indigo last month. Here's another species that's blooming also now. I saw it blooming. I saw the yellow one across the road from the white one driving up Highway 7 just the day before yesterday. And this is a white one, and it's actually called alba. Alba means white in Spanish, or in Latin. This is Baptisia alba. It is a large. It can go up to 5 feet tall or more. It also has vertical spikes, flowers, and a very bluish stem and sort of a bluish leaves. It's a very pretty specimen. This one was taken on Top of Mount magazine, but I've seen this species a variety of places, including, like I say, even on Highway 7 at Centerville just a couple of days ago. There's typical pea-like flowers that you see on wild indigo, white wild indigo. Back to yellow flowers. Yellow and orange flowers. We have a lot of those this time of year. This is one of our tick seed, which is genus Coreopsis, and you may call it genus Coreopsis, or you can call it tick seed. But there are 8 species of tick seed to grow native in Arkansas, and this is threadleaf tick seed. It also has other common names, but this is typically called threadleaf. And you see it has very, very narrow leaves. But that's one of our tick seed. And they make good garden flowers as well. They're related to cosmos. They're in the same family as cosmos, the same subfamily as cosmos. This is threadleaf tick seed from Mount Magazine. This is growing on the South Rim Trail, just out from the Benefield picnic area. If you go south along that South Rim, this is growing there. This is another tick seed. This is a different species. This is large flowered tick seed. This is blooming right now, and it's blooming in my garden and in my meadow and on the roadside near the house. This is large flowered tick seed. And it's a very nice. You can get you gardeners can get one called Sunrise. It's a double flowered version of this. And it's very beautiful. It don't get nearly as tall, so it's less likely to blow over as the native species. But it's got the same leaves, and it's the same species. It's just double flowered, lower growing version called Sunrise. Tick seed Sunrise or Coreopsis Sunrise. This is a Verbicina. This is called wingstem. This is there's several species of wingstem in Arkansas, white ones and yellow ones, and this is one of the largest flowered yellow one. It's called Verbicina helianthoides. Now the helianthoides comes from sunflower-like. So helianthus is sunflower, so this is sunflower-like. So it's a large flowered Verbicina, and it's got a wingstem as well. Now, what's this here? That is a lightning bug, okay? Lightning bugs, there's 2,000 species worldwide of lightning bugs, and our species here are generally, as adults, are nectar feeders. Some of the species of lightning bugs as adults are carnivorous, but this one is a nectar feeder. So lightning bug. And this is interesting. I took this picture a number of years ago, and actually my son may have taken it, I'm not sure, but I found it in my files, and I'm not sure. It clearly is either a helianthus or a Verbicina or one of those related orange wildflowers, but I like the helical nature of the flowers. You can see it sort of spinning out, or almost eddy-like, helical nature of the flower arrangement on that particular wildflower. Now this is a similar. This is actually a woodland wildflower, I think, which is genus Helianthus, which is related to the sunflowers, the sunflower family. But this is woodland sunflower. And there are two species in Arkansas. There's a rough one and a smooth one, and but they look alike otherwise. But genus Helianthus of the sunflower family. That's woodland sunflower. There's another woodland sunflower. This obviously appears to be the prickly, hairy one. The hairs are very rough when you touch them. But I think that's also woodland sunflower. Common in woodland areas. Does quite well in a partial shady garden. I've had it out there. It does tend to be a little bit invasive in your garden. I've had it out on the pond dam natively ever since I moved here 33 years ago. This is a common Arkansas plant. This is fly poison, okay? Now, fly poison is named fly poison because it's quite poison. And settlers used it to, mixed it with sugar, and when the flies would land on it and eat it, they would die. So it's called fly poison. And it was originally classified in the lily family, but now it's Melanthomiaceae, I believe. It's it's a different. They broke up the lily family a number of years ago and renamed it. But that's fly poison. It is common around in the woods in Arkansas. And there's the inflorescence. It's quite attractive, but it is poisonous. Now, I was going to tell you about this particular plant. This was blooming on, the date was the first week in May. And it's a late blooming, actually, mountain azalea. This was a pure white mountain azalea, and pure white mountain azaleas are uncommon. I mean, typically they're pink, aren't they? But there are a number of pure white ones, and this was a beautiful pure white specimen. It's growing at the top of Wolf Pin Gap, and Wolf Pin Gap is in extreme southeastern, southern Polk-P.O.L.K. County, and this particular plant thing grows all over Arkansas in the western in the hills of Arkansas, and you can see it in the Washtas, you can see it in the Ozarks. But the white versions are more common in the Washtas. But this is a beautiful specimen, and this picture was taken in 2003, I believe. I went back to collect seeds from this specimen in the fall, and all there was a hole in the ground, you know. Someone had taken the plant away. And the chances of that plant surviving, even moving at all in the best of conditions, would have been minimal. But to have moved it, you know, during its growing season, probably just after I took this picture, somebody came and dug it up. It did not live, I can guarantee you that. Okay, is everybody still with me?
As near as I can tell.
Okay.
Still here?
Are there any questions yet on the?
Yes, we do have several.
Okay. You want to address those now?
Sure.
Okay.
Ed asked where you can get the rabbit eye blueberries, and I know I've seen them for sale.
Okay.
So,
Isom's Nursery will ship them to you. Isom's Nursery, ISOM''S, Isom's Nursery really has a great selection of rabbit eyes. There's a variety of other sources as well. But those rabbit eyes came out of the southeastern United States. They're very capable of growing here. But Isom's Nursery has a real good selection. But you can read about them. You can Google rabbit eye, and you can get a lot of information about different cultivars that are available. The University of Carolina has been very successful over the years of developing native species of rabbit eye, and so has the University of Georgia. Those are the two big developers of rabbit eye blueberries. But Isom's Nursery has them, and a variety of other nurseries. But if you're going to raise blueberries, I've got a friend who raises blueberries commercially. He's a member of our local Citizens Climate Lobby, but he tells me that you don't want to get the high bush, which are the ones you see in the local stores like at Walmart and Lowe's, because they won't live very long. They're really good for 3 or 4 years, but then they die. But the rabbit eyes, see, my rabbit eye is almost 30. I've got 2 rabbit eyes that are almost 30 years old. One is 25 years old, and they'll live essentially for as long as you will. And they're a little bit sour in taste, and their hull is a little bit thicker, so they're a little more chewy. But several of them have a really good taste, and the different cultivars have a little bit different taste. Like the big one in the yard that's 30 years old and it's 10 feet high, 15 feet wide. It's a bit sour in its flavor, and it's no longer sold commercially because it is a little bit sour. So it's one that you want to eat with some sugar on it, whereas some of the newer varieties don't require, they actually have more intrinsic sugar in it and they're sweeter. So, but Isom's Nursery will have that information for you. They tell about the different cultivars, but you can get, that's where you can get them. Okay. Yeah,
we have a question about Asclepias variegata.
yes.
I want to know if it spreads as invasively as the common milkweed, with the taproot and hundreds of new plants after a couple of years.
Well, of course, I hadn't had a problem in my garden with the butter. I guess common milkweed. I guess you're saying butterfly weed, are they? The orange one. Now, there's something called common milkweed. There's like 14 different milkweeds in the United States, and we have like 5 of them or something in Arkansas. So by common, the most common one here is butterfly weed, right? And we see butterfly weed, which is the orange one. We see it in glades. We see it in prairies. We see it. We see it in lots of different places. Now, it hadn't been invasive, but any Arkansas plant, if you put fertilizer on it, it's going to go crazy in your garden. So generally, you don't want to fertilize native plants in your garden because they're going to go crazy. But I've not had that problem in my garden. My orange milkweed or butterfly weed has not been invasive in my garden. It's been very well behaved.
Okay, she says Syriaca,
Okay.
not tuberosa.
Okay, that one is an uncommon species in Arkansas. That's from a little bit further north. It's more in the tall grass prairies further north. So I don't have it in my garden. And I didn't realize it was so aggressive. But I think probably is it your garden or your grass has been fertilized at some point in the past, and that's why it's so aggressive. But gee, just give, when it's small, give it to your friends, and of course you go digging those things up and they're big old woody rhizome under the ground. Most of those milkweeds are, and they're hard to transplant, but sometimes you can transplant them successfully in the wintertime if you do it, when they're dormant.
Okay. I think that's all the questions. Some comments about how great your photos are.
Well, I appreciate that. Most of them are just shot with a point and shoot, over the years.
All right.
I've also got a single lens reflex I've been using quite a bit, especially this year. I've had that thing for years and decided, well, I'm going to get that thing out, dust it off, and see if I can do some stuff with it. It does a lot better with the close-up stuff. The digital single lens reflex does a lot better with the close-up stuff. Right.
Okay. That's all the questions we have right now.
Okay. Now, you saw the white azalea just a minute ago, the one that was stolen from Wolfpin Gap. This is our other species of wild azalea. It's common in many of the counties in Arkansas. I have seen it as far north as Pedestal Rocks, even though it's not described there. I did find it at Pedestal Rocks, on the trail there at Pedestal Rocks on the Kings Bluff Trail. But this is swamp azalea, Rhododendron viscosum. The other one is Rhododendron pinophyllum or mountain azalea. And this is our other native azalea. We actually have a third one that's native to South Arkansas. This one's not uncommon in the River Valley in the Southern Ozarks as far as throughout the Ouachitas. This is swamp azalea. And it's a sticky azalea. These little hairs are glandular hairs, and it's very sticky. It has a real sweet smell. It's different than mountain azalea. It smells the fragrance is a little different, but it's still a very attractive fragrance. This is a little smaller azalea as far as height goes. I've seen mountain azaleas be as high as 10 feet tall, and I've seen these be as 4 to 5 feet high. But it can be heavily laden with flowers. It's a very beautiful azalea. It's easier to grow than mountain azalea. It will grow in different soil types. But this is swamp azalea, Rhododendron viscosum, and it's the other Arkansas native species. And it blooms a month later, so it doesn't intergrade. They don't integrate. They don't cross. It blooms in the last weekend around Memorial Day. It always blooms around Memorial Day. You can find it blooming, and you can smell it from yards away and realize you're not far from a stand of swamp azalea. It actually grows in pretty mountainous areas, even though it's called swamp azalea. This is one of our native magnolias. This is tripetala, also called umbrella magnolia. You know, if you can grow one, you're really a good gardener. They're not easy to grow. They grow in north slopes in very moist areas, deep shade. They're very hard to grow in the garden, but if you can grow one, you're a good gardener. I tried and mine died. But it's a beautiful plant. It's a gorgeous plant. Magnolia tripetala or umbrella magnolia. Our other species of magnolia is cucumber magnolia. And it's a big tree, has much smaller leaves, not as attractive of flowers. They're up high in the upper story and you can't see them. But cucumber magnolia is a large tree. It can grow up to 2 feet in diameter even in Arkansas. But this tree is usually a smaller tree, although I've seen some pretty good sized ones in the past. But this is umbrella magnolia, and you can see why it's called umbrella. This is my son here. He was he pulled. I used my hiking pole to pull the limb down, and he held it for me while I took the picture. But you can see this flower is past its prime, but still somewhat pretty. And this actually is rather stinky. It's one of the magnolias that don't smell good. Beautiful plant, beautiful tree, but it has a rather unpleasant smell. Now, magnolias are not like modern flowers. Magnolias have been around for 40 or 50 million years, even before bees and other pollinators could pollinate them. So they were pollinated by bugs. And bugs like the unpleasant smells, even though many magnolias obviously smell very pleasant, and like the southern magnolia, which is not an Arkansas native, by the way. But this magnolia is not fragrant. It's rather a malodorous magnolia. This umbrella magnolia, one of our 2 native species in this part of Arkansas. Now in South Arkansas, we have Sweet Bay magnolia, and we have a lot of escaped southern magnolias because they're escaped from culture. In most counties you can find them in the wild, but they're not native. This umbrella magnolia from a distance. This is sweet anise or anise root or sweet cicely. Okay, this plant's interesting because it has a really wonderful fragrance. You see it growing in moist areas. In fact, this was growing a few feet from an umbrella magnolia. This is common all over Arkansas, especially in those kind of deep, moist hollows. You'll find sweet cicely, anise root, osmeriza, longistalis is a species name. The Indians and early settlers used it as a flavoring. It's anise root has anise flavoring, and so it's an interesting plant from that respect that it was used by Native Americans and early settlers as a flavoring, and also as a treatment for certain diseases. There's our old friend poison ivy. There's a flower. It's an umbellifera, which is the dill, parsley. It's related to dill and parsley. And you can see the flowers are typical of dill and parsley flowers. Anise root. Now, I want to show this picture because that's that little prairie remnant at Camp Robinson. And you guys work up there. You're familiar with that. Now, what a prairie is in Arkansas, it's an area that never has been plowed, basically. It's an open area with few trees. It has never been plowed, so the original seed stock are still there. And seeds can persist in a prairie or even in the forest for hundreds of years and never germinate. And they can sit there and wait till the time to germinate. So we frequently find that these prairies, if they're left alone, some of the native seeds can come up. And in this particular plant that we're seeing bloom here, in that little remnant of prairie remnant in the Camp Robinson Special Use Area, is Arkansas sneezeweed. And it's common in prairies in Arkansas, particularly eastern Arkansas, but it goes as far west as Faulkner County, and we can see it here in that prairie remnant, Arkansas sneezeweed. And it's a pretty plant. It's in a different genus than the sunflowers, but it is in the aster family. It is a sneezeweed. It would be related to bitterweed. It would be a same genus as bitterweed, Arkansas sneezeweed. But it's not really, it doesn't make you sneeze, but they call it sneezeweed. Arkansas sneezeweed. Another one of the Arkansas plants. We've got a lot of Arkansas plants. This is skullcap. Skullcaps, there's 11 species of skullcaps in Arkansas, and this is one of them. They're also mints, square stem, opposite leaf. This one, even though the heart, frequently on this species, the leaves are heart shaped. This is heart-leafed skullcap. And it has very pretty flowers. You see you remember looking back at the horsemint or the bee balm that we looked at earlier? The dorsal petal, overarching dorsal petal, and the lower petal. Irregular flower, meaning it's not shaped like a typical round flower. That's a mint flower. This is one of our skullcaps, and they're common in Arkansas. Beautiful plants. They can seed around your garden. If you've got a partially shaded garden, they're beautiful plants in the garden. Skullcaps. This was a unique plant. I wanted to show this because it's such a unique plant. I think took this last year, maybe at the Arkansas Master Naturalists get together in the spring. This is spider brake fern growing on the rocks there at Hot Springs National Park along the walkway, and that's a rare fern. Only been found in 3 counties in Arkansas, and I thought it was a neat fern. The brake fern family is a pretty large family. There's several species in Arkansas, but nothing equivalent to the spider brake fern. You see why they call it spider brake fern. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about prairies. Now, did you want to have any break, or you want to keep going?
Well, I don't see any. I do have a question.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yeah, we'll keep going and go ahead. What question you got?
Let's see. Ed says they have several sweet bay magnolias, but they've not grown much in 4 years. Is this normal?
Oh, great. They're sweet bays. No, that's not normal for sweet bay. Sweet bay, grows. There are 2 varieties of sweet bay magnolia. There's the Atlantic coastal version, which grows all along the Atlantic coast. She's not more than 100 miles inland from the ocean, and you see it in Florida and Louisiana and all. And those are capable of growing here and do quite well. They like a lot of moisture. There's a native species, a subspecies of sweet bay magnolia that grows in South Arkansas. It's a beautiful specimen. It's fastigious and vertical. It will get to 40 feet tall versus, and usually single stem. But as all magnolias, it has lower limbs that are persistent. So you'll still have persistent flowers, you can see. The coastal version is a shrub, multi-stem shrub. And the coastal version in Arkansas, it's frequently deciduous. It loses its leaves in the winter. Whereas the Arkansas version is not, its leaves are persistent in the winter. But the Arkansas version is hard to get. And I looked out and got some of it a number of years ago. I got one specimen about 30 years ago, and I've had it, and it's been a beautiful specimen. I've also got the other versions. Now, my sweet bays grow near the pond. They're all associated with a pond or with a wet area, a wetland that I have on the property, and so they got lots of moisture, and they grow quite well. And I've got two coastal sweet bays, and one of them's about 20 by 20 and got about 4 or 5 stems, 4 or 5 trunks. Then I've got another that's about that size that's got 3 or 4 trunks. And then I again have that native Arkansas single stem sweet bay. But I think probably the reason they're not growing is maybe the moisture is not adequate. That's all I could think of as far as sweet bay.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. We have a lot of prairies in Arkansas. Before the arrival of European settlers, there are more than 2 million acres of prairie and glades in Arkansas. And, unfortunately, most of the prairies have been either taken over in cultivation or the trees have overcome because of lack of fire. But there are a number of prairies that are maintained in Arkansas, usually by the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission. We have several prairies. We have several types of prairies. We'll show you 2 today. This is one about 40 miles or west of me. This is north of Charleston, Arkansas, off Highway 22, about 2 miles north of Highway 22, north of Charleston. This is called Cherokee Prairie. It's a large prairie that was donated to or purchased through the Nature Conservancy and given to the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission. Frequently, that's what happens. Nature Conservancy will buy the land and then give it permanently to the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission. And this is how many of these Natural Heritage Commission natural areas are formed and allocated. This one is Cherokee Prairie, and then about 3 miles from this one is another prairie called Flanagan Prairie. And Flanagan Prairie is smaller. Cherokee Prairie involves several acres, and I don't know how many acres, but it's certainly perhaps 100 acres or more. Flanagan's seems like it's probably only about 40 acres, but Cherokee Prairie is a wonderful place to see, especially toward the end of this month and early next month. You will see it lit up like this. This is pale purple coneflower on Cherokee Prairie. You see the tall grasses. This is a tall grass prairie. This grass here's starting to bloom already. You see not only pale purple coneflowers, but you see rough coneflower. Now, rough coneflower is a yellow coneflower. It's not actually a coneflower. It's not in genus Echinacea. It's actually a black-eyed Susan cousin, okay? It is in that genus that black-eyed Susan's in, Rudbeckia. It's Rudbeckia, can't think of the species right off, but that's rough coneflower. And there are 2 versions of that. One has a droopy petals, and one has black-eyed Susan horizontal petals. But this is a droopy petal version of rough coneflower. But you can see enormous beauty, with this field of flowing flowers. You go any season you see different ones. So you go in the early spring, you're going to see different things you see now, this is what you'll see essentially now. And then later in the season, you'll see different species blooming, and then toward the fall there'll be yet different species that'll be in full bloom. So it's a wonderful place to see is our native prairies. Now, closer to you, folks there in Little Rock, for instance, if you're there, or even in Conway, might be the railroad prairie out near Stuttgart. I've been there collecting seeds, and I'm sure some of you have helped collect seeds there too before for the Audubon Society or Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission. But that's one thing we do, you know, is seed collect, and the railroad prairie out there would be quite pretty right now as well. That's part of the Grand Prairie, the Great Grand Prairie that was out near Stuttgart, and there's just a few remnants of that left, and along the railroad right away mainly. But this is Cherokee Prairie, and it's a pretty large prairie, and quite beautiful. And here's more visions of Cherokee Prairie, pale purple and rough coneflower. There's rough coneflower. Now in the distance, you see a different species, don't you? Okay, that's gay feather, and we have multiple species of gay feather in Arkansas. This is a tall prairie gay feather. This is actually called prairie gay feather, and all the purple there is prairie gay feather, and in the foreground is rough coneflower. This is also a Cherokee prairie. And there's the prairie gay feather and the coneflowers and Rudbeckia, mainly Rudbeckia in the front there. Here's some taller species that are going to be blooming later. That might be that probably is a antelope horn milkweed, green antelope horn. And I bet that's what we're seeing there is green antelope horn milkweed is starting to fruit. Okay, we've seen this guy before, and this is the Cherokee Prairie, and this is the yellow specimen that I showed you from my pond earlier. That's a Baptisia or wild indigo, yellow wild indigo. And there's more of the flowers. It's a different prairie. This is Baker's Prairie. I imagine some of you have been to Baker's Prairie. It's up in Harrison, by the high school, and it was donated to the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission a number of years ago, and been maintained by them. We see multiple species here in Baker's Prairie. We see the pale purple coneflower we've seen before. We see rattlesnake master. There's rattlesnake master. Why is it called rattlesnake master? It's because the Native Americans used it, used the roots of it to treat rattlesnake bites. So rattlesnake master. We see a poppy mallow here. This is a poppy mallow, and it's really a pretty poppy mallow. There's 2 or 3 species in Arkansas. This is one of the taller, thinner poppy mallows. We see compass plant here, don't we? Compass plant's blooming back here. Compass plant is a common prairie species. We see it in roadside ditches in Arkansas. We see it along rivers, in the gravel along Arkansas upland rivers. Compass plant, beautiful flowers. It's called compass plant because it leans toward the sun. Compass plant. There's compass plant again with pale purple coneflower, Baker's Prairie near Harrison. One more picture. Compass plant. The poppy mallow we talked about, pale purple coneflower. Okay, I just want to show you this plant. You see this plant in prairies too. I don't know if you're familiar with this one. This is sensitive briar. Now, where this one grows, and I see it every year, I go to Mount Magazine because it blooms on the side of the road at Mount Magazine. If you're going up from the south side, about halfway up, it's on the right, on the curve in the road. And I've seen it for years, and I found it blooming again, and I want to take pictures, and I got out and took pictures of it a few years ago. And it's a perennial plant. It's actually a briar. It is in the bean family. It's actually genus Mimosa Natalia, named after Nuttall, the great explorer, the great plant explorer who came through Arkansas in 1817. Nuttall, Thomas Nuttall. But this is Mimosa Natalia, and it has these little mimosa-like flowers. And when you touch the leaflets, they fold up. And that's why it's called sensitive briar. It's sensitive briar. It's a cool plant. And it'd probably do quite well in your garden if you had access to seeds. I don't know about seed collecting on that species. Sensitive briar. Just show a few other things. This is a little ebony jewel wing. I'm sure you guys have seen this. This is a little damselfly. He's very lightweight and he flies very slowly. You think about damselflies and dragonflies that have very fast wings and flying very fast. It's a very slow flyer, and you could actually see his wings flap as he flies, but it's ebony jewel wing. And I got this picture on some alder. This is American alder or tag alder, Alnus seriolata, and that is ebony jewel wing, little damselfly, beautiful specimen. And summer azure, that is a in the group that would include the blues. It's in that group of butterflies, and not all butterflies feed on flowers. This particular one is getting protein from a crawfish leg, and a crawfish leg that was probably left there from a raccoon. I saw raccoon prints, and so the raccoon had eaten the crawfish. That's one of their main diets. It's crawfish, and on that discarded leg, he's extracting protein from the discarded leg. And this is some of the feces of the raccoon, and it's being fed upon by northern pearly eye, which is not a common Arkansas butterfly, but it's seen in all parts of the state. But it's not a common butterfly. It's a medium-sized butterfly, a brushfoot. He's got 4 legs, although you can't see them. He's in the brushfoot group, but he's feeding on the feces because he's extracting protein from the feces of the raccoon. And buttonbush. Buttonbush is a really common Arkansas wetland species, and it grows good. It'll grow in dry area in your garden as well. And it's a wonderful nectar source. And it blooms over a long period of time. You can see here that there's immaturity there. It hadn't bloomed yet, or it's already bloomed, but it blooms over several weeks in the summertime. And it's a good, long, prolonged nectar source in the midsummer when there's not a lot of nectar sources out, but buttonweed's going to be producing nectar. And that again is our old friend, American lady. Now this species is common in the prairies. It's common in wet ditches. It always grows on wet areas of the prairies. It's Meadow Beauty, and Meadow Beauty is really beautiful. It's a beautiful pink. It's one of our uncommon pink flowers. I mean, Meadow Beauties are most common pink flowers, should I say. Pink flowers are uncommon, but Meadow Beauty is common. And Meadow Beauty, it can grow well if you've got a moist area in your garden. The seeds are easy to collect in the fall. In fact, we went out on a seed collection here in Russellville. I got with the Audubon Society, with Dan Scheinman and the Audubon Society. And we went to the prairie and realized that somebody had mowed the prairie. And the only thing left was an area that was wet that they had mown. And so the only seeds we could collect were Meadow Beauties. And we ended up collecting tens of zillions of Meadow Beauty seeds. But they weren't really on the list, but we knew that they probably knew how to extract them and purify them. All the seeds that are collected, by the ANHC and by the Audubon Society are packaged up and sent to a mill in Kentucky, I believe it is. and they have ways of purifying the seeds, and then they sell the purified seeds to Arkansas people. They sell them to A&HC for prairie restoration. They sell them to the Audubon Society. They sell them to Arkansas Road Department for seeding the road edges in Arkansas, especially on the scenic areas. But we collected Metabeauty seeds that day. We collected a lot of Metabeauty seeds, but that's all there was to collect that particular day was Metabeauty. We have 2 species in Arkansas. We have Maryland Metabeauty and Virginia Metabeauty. We have both species. I think this is Maryland Metabeauty. I'm not really sure, but Rexia mariana, Maryland Metabeauty. The other one is Rexia virginica, or Virginia Metabeauty, of the family Mastomataceae, which is, we don't have many of that particular family, the Metabeauty family. There's 2 species in that genus. That's in a roadside ditch probably that I took that. But they're all over the prairies as well, in moist areas, always in moist areas. You wouldn't want this plant to dry out if you were raising it in your garden. Now, in May and June, we've got the penstemons, or the beard tongues. And they started off late last month, late April, with the early blooming ones. Arkansas penstemon, there is another Arkansas plant, Arkansas penstemon. Arkansas penstemon is Penstemon arkansanus. And then you had pale penstemon, which is sort of similar to this one, but it's smaller. This is one of the big old tall prairie penstemons. This is a foxglove beard tongue. And it is Penstemon digitalis. It's, because of its appearance, it looks like foxglove. But foxglove beard tongue, a wonderful plant for your native plant garden. Pollinators love it. It's very pretty. It makes good cut flower, and it's readily available. It's about every ditch in Arkansas, but it grows in somewhat moist, not really terrible, not really that moist areas, but it won't grow in real dry areas either. Whereas like Arkansas beard tongue and pale beard tongue will grow in glades. This is not a glade plant. This is a prairie plant, a plant of prairies and moist ditches, but it grows great in the garden. But it's one of our big, we have 2 big tall beard tongues, and this is one of them. And this is characterized by a dilated corolla tube. It comes down and it opens up like foxglove, okay? That's why it's called foxglove beard tongue, because of the dilated corolla tube. The next one, this is our other common large, tall, late spring beard tongue. This one is trumpet shaped, and it's called Penstemon tubiflorus. This particular beard tongue is, and it's very tall. It gets to about 3 to 4 feet tall, just as the foxglove beard tongue is. And it's also in moist areas along in the state, and very much like foxglove beard tongue, except that it does not have the dilated corolla tube, and the flower inflorescence are a little bit different. But again, a great. It's about a week later in foxglove beard tongue, so it was extend your blooming season in regard. Another great Arkansas native plant. It would be good for a native plant garden and give you a white vertical plant that could be about 3 feet high. Again, you wouldn't want to fertilize it because it's going to fall over. If fertilize, it's going to get too tall and fall over in the wind. But it's a great plant. Both of those are great native plants. And I'm going to close it with a little picture of my son and his dog. He hikes with me and kayaks with me and bikes with me. And that's his dog. And this is on a Washita Trail. And you can see the old southern short-leaf pine. This one looks to be about probably 70 or 80 years old. And this probably is a sweet gum, and it's a very old sweet gum as well. And these little understory plants are big leaf snowbell. And I talked about how frequent the big leaf snowbell was. Well, you can see how frequent it is. And these ground plants here are probably a dwarf huckleberry, which is also a very good taste in Arkansas huckleberry. It's not as tall as rabbit eye, but it's a little bit earlier, and actually it's a little sweeter, but the fruit's smaller. So it's more work to get, but well worth it if you want to go out in early June and pick these berries. They're just fantastic as far as a gastronomical delight. And that's really all I had today. Any questions about Arkansas plants or animals?
We did have several. Hang on.
Okay.
I think Anne listed that there's a source for native seeds that they use called roundstoneseed.com.
I've heard of it. Yeah. Okay. Roundstone seed. Okay.
You might want to make a note of that. And I wanted to mention that there is a prairie remnant in the middle of Conway. It's on the campus of ASU, and it's a lovely place to visit. It's only, I think it's about—
It's on UCA, not ASU.
Oh, you're right. Sorry about that. But anyway, it's a beautiful place to visit, and right here in the middle of town. Let's see here. What else do I have? Seems like I had some other questions. No, maybe not. Maybe just comments. I think that's all that I had.
Okay. Yeah, our largest prairie remnant here in Russellville is behind the Firestone plant. It's about maybe 7 acres. I don't know if any of you collected seeds up here. I know Arkansas Master Naturalists have come up here to collect seeds, but that's our biggest native remnant is behind the Firestone plant.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions?